All right, folks, welcome on in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. We are excited to have you with us here again on this beautiful Tuesday for all you beautiful people out there. Got my man Anthony Schlegel with me here riding shotgun. Huge show again today. As always, on Tuesday, we're joined by our friend Bill Bender. Going to do a great job breaking down all the big games from last week. Preview a little bit of some of the games that are coming up this week as the schedule really starts to ratchet up, starting to find some upsets, some different things that are happening. Around the world of college football, potential scheduling alliance with the Big Ten and SEC that we'll talk a little bit about today, some other fun things around the world of college football. But first, I want to get your take on this. I know I talked to you a little bit about it this morning on my radio show. But
morning juice.
The morning juice, anytime you lose a sports icon, I think, it's important to kind of always talk about that and understand what their place is, especially in a state like Ohio with Pete Rose, being a native son here, playing in Cincinnati, the hit king, and all of the stuff that surrounds him. He has a very, very complicated legacy and a very, very complicated history, and that's okay. Like, human beings by nature are fallible. There's going to be some noise around their legacy. Nobody is perfect, and he obviously has a long list of things that he needed to apologize for, Schlegs. And with that, kind of your initial thoughts about Pete Rose.
Pete Rose, I love the way that Pete Rose played the game. We talk about playing fast and violent. He played baseball like a football player that would play baseball, fast and violent. And you appreciated that from him. 17-year career. He was a player manager, for Pete's sakes. Literally, his name is Pete. But yeah, really. So I love the way he played. And yeah, did he bet on baseball? 100%. And I think with this, Bob, we know that there is the steroid era. Those guys are still able to be on the ballot. You now have an era in which pro football and professional baseball, MLB, they have sponsors that are gambling sponsors. So I understand what he did, but at some point there comes a time where it's like, hey, we understood. He said he came out and that he did bet on baseball. Shoeless Joe Jackson, I remember reading
you remember
history.
Shoeless Joe Jackson?
I don't, but I remember reading about it because I'm super old. But again, I love baseball. I read up on the 1919 Black Sox, as they were called. And did he even know that he was betting on it when he had the best hitting average and hit home runs in it? Did he know exactly what was going on? I don't know. But once you take on, like, people are able to bet and it's just a little bit of things of that nature, and he's already admitted that he did it, why not be able to put him on the ballot? Doesn't mean that anybody's going to vote for him. People probably aren't going to vote for Roger Clemens and Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds, though Barry Bonds in of himself was a Hall of Fame type caliber guy before those events.
Him and Roger Clemens are kind of the outliers because both of them had Hall of Fame careers pre the steroid era. I believe Clemens had 3 Cy Youngs and Barry had 3 MVPs even before that mid-90s uptick where they had their resurgence.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too, like, baseball liked that era. But I'm not going to go, I'll digress. But I would just say this. To me, when I remember anybody that passed, Chris Christopherson passed, right? I always just go look at the positives. And for me, the positive of Pete Rose is that he played the game of baseball the way that I thought the game of baseball should be played. Hard, fast and violent, and I enjoyed watching the highlights because it was before my time.
Yeah, it was good. I was never really a huge baseball guy, but when you have the nickname Charlie Hustle, Hit King, like 2 of the best nicknames you're going to find, you go look at the numbers. I mean, even like guys like Albert Pujols, Derek Jeter, I mean, they're 800 hits, 600, 600 hits behind them. I mean, what they would have to do, maybe even more than 1,000, I think, like what they would have to do to be able to equal what he's done. It was remarkable. I think 4 times he had 200 hits in a season. Just really talented player, but played really hard. And that's what you touched on there, Schlegs, played really hard. And it's not just the way baseball should be played. I think he played sports the way that sports should be played. And, in an era now where everybody's, too cool for school and, guys hitting the peace sign up as they run in the end zone. Like, so Pete Rose, I mean, he was all about winning, all about playing hard. Didn't matter if it was the All-Star game. sliding in and maybe to his detriment of understanding what an exhibition was. But, the guy played the game the right way. And I look at this and I always have believed that America is the land of second chances. And the land, we're a very forgiving culture, especially if you admit to it. And you go back to '89 with Giamatti, I believe Bart Giamatti, there's a commissioner. By the way, like Paul Giamatti's dad, who I just found that out today. And if you look at them, they look very similar. Um, he takes the suspension so they don't dig in on anything else. There's obviously federal stuff that was swirling around under the lifetime ban, but with the ability to have it reviewed 1 year from then. Well, Giamatti died and is never able to review it, and no one subsequently wanted to take the dive into it. And look at that happen in '89. 15 so years later, 2004, he writes his book and he admits to gambling on baseball. It's 2024. So 20 years later after that, 35 years after he initially is banned. And I look at this, I'm like, you look at a guy that was 80 years old. He passed away at 83. And his life was the game. He didn't admit to it in the time, but he eventually came and admitted to it and talked about it. And really the end of his life, the last 20 years, like kind of was, it was basically a parody of what he was. I mean, he was a kind of a joke of who he became. And it was sad. And I look at it and everybody like, we'll put this guy in posthumously and, that's what it'll be. And after they die, I'm like, at some point, is there enough penance that's ultimately paid? Is there a point where like he did some terrible things? Pete, we're gonna put you back on the ballot. And when you get in, all that stuff's gonna be wrapped around your plaque. Everything that you did. Are you good with that? I think he would have been good with it. And I think like at 80 years old, the guy had probably suffered enough. He'd been through it. Like he didn't get to enjoy a lot of things. And that's why the Reds had brought him back and they celebrate him a little. Cause at some point, like, dude, the guy's going to be gone. And it's a complicated story. Like so many people are. And you look at, guys like Mickey Mantle and all these different sports icons, they're human. So they're going to be fallible. There's going to be a lot of good on the field. But with that, there's going to be a lot of bad. And there's going to be stories around them, their personal lives and everything else. And so when they get older, like a lot of people, obviously they begin to come to terms, they come to grips that that's all part of their legacy. And so like seeing that, man, I watched him, I was like, I just hope that they put him in before he dies. And when I heard that news, I was like, man, he probably sat there, looking up and great regret. And I guarantee you great remorse because you could see it towards the end of knowing what he had done and what he was a part of and just a life kind of wasted that he could have probably done some good at the end, Schlegs, if given the opportunity to be a part of it.
I agree with what you were saying there, Bob. But you know what though? Like we also just got to get over the fact of, I'll put it this way. The hardest thing about us as athletes and sports people, one, we're all imperfect people. And I think sometimes people forget because they're judging themselves based on you, right? Like we should never do that. Like, that's the problem. Like who are you weighing yourself against? Well, I do all these things, but I also make it up for over here. Listen, we're all imperfect people. We also have opportunities of making the best out of our situations. And, as we even look at this, like, what was he actually thinking? Like, he might have came to grips with the fact that he wasn't getting in, but who is he? But I will say this, the hardest thing that we all face, Bob, you face it, I face it, anybody that's played sports at a high level, and I would say high level meaning even college, it doesn't really matter. Our identity is so wrapped up in that sport, right? You got to be something bigger than just your sport because you are. Your identity is not in who you are on the field. Your identity is in who you are as a person. And that's something that we all struggle with once we get out of the game because we've put so much time, energy, and effort of ourselves into the game. It's why we still love it, Bob. It's why you and I still go around it. It's why I still enjoy coaching it when I did, because I just enjoy those guys. And it brings me back to a time where I was that guy. So, I don't know what he was thinking at the end, but I agree with your point that I wish that once he came out, he's like, why does it have to be the death penalty for baseball that you gambled on baseball. We just had Shohei Ohtani's thing, and they kicked out the
Yes.
interpreter. I mean, I'm just saying, right? But
I
like,
know.
why are you going to do that when the guy's the 50-50 guy? I'm just saying, right? Like when steroids was going on and everybody knew it, were they testing?
No.
Did they want to test?
Hey.
Do they like the rating numbers?
Yeah.
So I just say, there's more to it than MECI Transformer style. But I do agree with you, Bob. I wish they would have let him in.
Honestly, them, and you look now, they've got partnerships with gambling. Like Pete did like the first bet in the state of Ohio. It's legal in like 30 some odd states. If you permit it, you promote it, Schlegs, especially with the steroids. That's a whole nother deal for another day. But I just thought it was important to kind of talk about that because it's everybody's complicated. These complicated legacies because human beings are fallible. We got Bill Bender coming up next.
Yes.
But first, I want to tell everybody, athletes, parents, about our friends over at Export Mouth Guards. Protect what matters most. They're trusted by professional athletes and designed by NHL team dentists. Export Mouth Guards are scientifically proven and tested to help you absorb those high impact hits, protecting both your mouth, your teeth, and your brain. Export Mouth Guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber.
Yeah.
They 3D print these bad boys right to your grill, so it's going to fit tremendously. More protection, better performance, maximum comfort, clear communication, so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby. That way you can save 15% on the mouth guard. Export protects what matters most. Bill Bender coming up next.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, welcome in our guy from the Sporting News, one of the best to do it, Bill Bender. Give him a follow on social media at BillBender92. Doing a great job. And Bill, we're going to blitz the weekend here. It was a nice, robust weekend of college football starting on Friday night. And I would be remiss if we didn't start with you right there after watching Virginia Tech. I don't know if they got hosed, but I watched the end of that game like 30 times and I still couldn't tell you what happened. I don't know if it was enough to review it either way. And Miami escapes Coral Gables unscathed once again.
Yeah, and real quick, your thoughts on Pete Rose in the last segment. I echo all of those. There's not a Central Ohio kid that grew up playing Little League Baseball that didn't hear about Charlie Hustle and work ethic and playing the game at 100% at all times. And the picture, of him sliding that we all saw yesterday. So rest in Pete Rose for sure. Controversy that translates into what we saw Friday night. Every time I watch that play, I don't know if he caught it or not. I thought at first he did. Then it looks like he didn't come down with it. The call is what it is. I'm surprised that they reversed it, and that leads to some conspiracy theories on its own. But I think Miami showed some flaws. Struggled against the run, struggled to tackle. Cam Ward had a couple turnovers. And, right now Miami's in front of the ACC, and they don't play Clemson in the regular season. But if they cross Clemson, they can't do those things. They would get beat.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just stick with the other games too. On that night, Friday, you had Washington and Rutgers, and I actually picked Rutgers as a 2.5. I was like, all right, they got 3. Like, that was really good. But, there were some things like they have to rely on their run game, but they showed a lot of fight. I love Greg Schiano and how he's talking to his guys. Rutgers has a chance of making some noise in the college football playoff if they continue to play well.
Bill, when are they going to rank Rutgers, by the way? When did your folks over there Like my man Jacob Hester texted me. He's like, "When are the cowards in the AP going to rank Rutgers? They didn't even have a vote going into last week, for heaven's sake."
Well, they ranked Indiana this week because we like offense more than defense. You guys know that. And I hate to say that to you two because you're linebackers, but we always go with the offensive team first. And Curtis Rourke and everything that Indiana's doing right now. But Rutgers, he's got a belief with that team. They're good up front on both sides. They limited Washington on third down. Huskies had a bunch of penalties in that game. If you watch that game for a half hour, you're probably thinking, why is Washington not winning this game?
Facts.
And yeah, like they get up tempo and throw the ball around, but Rutgers is a tough physical football team that kind of likes to grind it out. And I agree with you guys. They should be, I think we have them 28 in our 1-to-134, which is right there on the cusp of being a top 25 team.
So you had mentioned before Schlegel, the other Friday night game with Clemson, with Miami, and talking about how Clemson you thought would beat them. Were we too quick to bury Clemson with where they're at now? Because they've looked pretty darn impressive. And Georgia's been good. Obviously, they had the big comeback against Bama, and we'll get into that. But, I mean, is it a two-horse race, in your opinion, in the ACC? Or were we too quick to dismiss Clemson and maybe crown Miami?
Maybe a little bit. And, I mean, Clemson got beat on a big stage by Georgia. They have an offense right now. Cade Klubnik's playing extremely well. He has 12 touchdown passes since. I would say the thing with the ACC that we learned last Friday night, though, is none of those games are given. Pitt's still undefeated. Louisville let one get away at Notre Dame. Had a really terrible call on fourth down where they couldn't get just a quick quarterback sneak in, took a delay of game. And there's every week you can't take for granted. Like, I wouldn't sit here and say, well, I probably would say Clemson will go down to Florida State and win this weekend, but you just never know. Is this the week that the Seminoles have their rally around a new quarterback type deal? So for Clemson and Miami, it is very important not to have that hiccup loss in the ACC.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, that's why the college football experience is unlike any other. Like, you have no clue what's going to happen. You got a kicker going out there, missing 3 field goals, all to the left. Like, what guys can't get lined up on a quarterback sneak, delay of game penalty. You got lights flickering in the stadium, the Alabama-Georgia game, which honestly, like, we should bring that to Ohio State. Like, it was juicy. But let's say so now you're talking about ACC. Let's flip to the Big 12, because K-State back, and then Utah's playing Arizona, and they get beat by Arizona. Like, they had complete competitive advantage in the Big 12. Now what's going to happen?
Well, Brett Yormark promised parity, and that's what we have. Kansas State goes and has a meltdown at BYU, turns around and beats down Oklahoma State. BYU and Iowa State are at the top of the standings right now. Iowa State's only allowing 7.3 points per game. You want to talk about winning ugly and taking that to the max. Watch Iowa State for a little bit. They play very good defense with Matt Campbell. There's 7 teams in our top 50 right now, and I would say any one of them, including Colorado, has a shot in this thing.
Ooh.
So, I mean, that was the least expected result. Maybe my biggest miscalculation of the weekend was I thought USC or UCF would run through Colorado, and it turned out to be the opposite. The Buffaloes have a bye week, and that when we talk about football next week, Kansas State, Colorado is part of this unbelievable weekend that we'll have in week 7.
Which I don't think many people would have anticipated in Colorado. That victory over Central Florida, Bill, I was right there with you. I thought, okay, it's a complete Central Florida team. Colorado may have the 2 best players, but that's not going to be enough. And they dominated that thing from kick to finish. Maybe Deion's starting to figure some things out. Another maybe unexpected result, Kentucky taking down Ole Miss in Oxford. They were close against Georgia, kind of fumbled it away late. They punt instead of ultimately trying to maybe go for the win, cost them the game. Mark Stoops has done a really good job there. They had the blowout against South Carolina. Maybe we wrote them off. But looking at Ole Miss, like, was this a loss we should have expected? I figured they would go 10-2. Maybe they lose to a Georgia still, but I mean, we knew they lose one kind of like this, or we thought so. At least I did. Does this seem like this might be that normal blip and then they'll be off to the races, or is this something that there's maybe more systemic here?
Well, it takes away their margin for error.
Mm-hmm.
The 1 of 10 on third down, the conversion they gave up, it was a bit of a miracle pass from Vandegrift to Berrien Brown, but at the same time, Kentucky played keep away the whole game. 40 minutes of time of possession. Ole Miss had bad penalties. That's the theme of the weekend. Some of these teams, when it happens, you have these bad penalties, and then all of a sudden Lane Kiffin's complaining about the officials at halftime, and before you know it, they lose. It does the margin for error thing. They played LSU in 2 weeks. I'm going to tell you something about LSU. They've lost exactly one home game with Brian Kelly. One. And that was to Hendon Hooker in Tennessee. Garrett Nussmeier's playing really good football. Those two teams played that ridiculous game last year. Remember how many points they scored. And that's going to feel a little bit like an elimination game of sorts because you don't want to fall too far behind the standings. So, man, Ole Miss went from this offensive machine and blowing everybody out to you better go down to Baton Rouge and win.
What's the point total on that for you, Bill? Like 85?
I mean, they'll definitely play to 40. There's no doubt about that. For, like I said, defensive guys like you probably want to turn your heads. Where's the tackling?
Yeah, well, listen, that happens, but it also turns into good television. All right, so now you got Ashanti Genty, right? So 4 games, 82 carries, 845 yards, 13 touchdowns. Bob talked about Travis Hunter, best player in college football. Like, this dude's making a case, though, for, like, the Heisman. Is Boise going to be that group of 5 team coming in?
They're a lot of fun. They play UNLV in a couple weeks, and I feel like we would need 3 segments to talk about UNLV last week and everything that happened, but it is going to be a fun match. They did win. They came out and won, and their quarterback played well. How about that?
Yeah.
Ashton Genty's averaging over 10 yards per carry. I think that's the stat that gets me. It's literally a first down every time he touches the ball, maybe more. And he's doing it in a fashion that it's very hard for running backs to win the Heisman in 2024. I mean, I've seen Melvin Gordon do it. I've seen Samaj Pirine put up ridiculous numbers, and they kind of just finished second or third. So if Boise State goes to the playoff and he continues to have these highlight reel runs, which he's amazing, he'll have a chance along with Milroe and Cam Ward and, of course, Travis Hunter, who's playing every snap. Those are the 4 that, quote-unquote, won the September Heisman. You could take your pick. There's no wrong answer.
All right, we're going to put a pin in that because I want to get into those Heisman, kind of handicapped out a little bit with Bill. Plus, we'll dive into all the Big Ten games because there was a lot of them that were also juicy there on Saturday. We got that with more Bill Bender coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
It's just that's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yep.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show here. If you're watching on digitally, please like, subscribe, leave your comments and questions. We love it. If you're watching on Bally's, thank you as well. Here with Bill Bender, the Sporting News. Give him a follow on social at Bill Bender 92. And Bill, you mentioned 4 of your Heisman September finalists. I believe, you had Milroe, you had Travis Hunter. Who were your other 2?
Cam Ward and Genty.
And Genty. Handicap those 4, and then is there anybody else you could see maybe jumping into this mix here in the second month of the season?
Well, here's the thing. Those 4 are the only 4 right now, according to Caesars, that have odds that are plus 1,000 or better than plus 1,000. Okay. So they've done their thing. I think Travis Hunter has a huge bandwagon right now because he's playing all the snaps, and he is playing receiver at an elite level, and he has a couple interceptions, 3 passes defense, and he seems to make plays at the right time for Colorado. So that'll keep him in it. Milroe had the signature game in the biggest spot so far. I mean, he was amazing, especially in the first half. But I think the 2 most interesting players to me, and I don't know if they can get in the Heisman voting, but I think you know what I'm going to say. It's Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Those are the two most exciting players in college football right now. You saw the Ryan Williams spin move. I don't know how he did it. Incredible game against Georgia. You see back-to-back one-handed catches from Jeremiah Smith. Heard the Terrell Owens comparison. When you have people saying he is going to be the best Ohio State receiver, and then you turn on your TV on Sunday and see all the NFL receivers from Ohio State, it's the highest praise possible. And what he's been able to do, if Ohio State wins the Big Ten and he continues to score touchdowns like this every week, he might have a chance to get in the mix. I don't know if he can win it, but it'd be close.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely amazing. And first off, Ryan said it the best, right? He's a humble kid that just wants to work. I love his mentality. There are no 50-50 balls with me. They're just all mine. I love that, right? He loves his room and the preparation from heart. But you also talked about Ryan Williams in there. So let's talk Alabama, Georgia, because beginning of that game, Alabama was just absolutely dominating Georgia. And when Georgia beat Alabama, they were able to affect Milroe. The offensive line is better at Alabama. Georgia showed some fight, but where does Georgia go from here now?
I think they're in more trouble. I don't know if it means they don't get in the playoff, but they cannot lean on the running game like they've been able to in years past. And you can see that. Carson Beck was under duress in the first half, made a couple bad throws. I think Alabama is in good shape. They play Tennessee, they play LSU, they play Oklahoma, all on the road. I think they'll get two or three of those games. Georgia still plays at Texas, at Ole Miss, and has Tennessee at home. I mean, if they lose another one of those games, it gets a little bit dicey just from the standpoint you don't know how the playoff teams stack up. So I thought Carson Beck played awesome in the second half. That running game is a worry for me. Alabama, I'm really not worried about them at all. I think Kalen DeBoer proved that, hey, I mean, just go look at his track record from Sioux Falls through Washington. He wins at every stop. He's not the most exciting, flashy coach. But who cares? He wins.
Absolutely. And speaking of leaning on the run, while Georgia may not be able to do it, Penn State leaned on it heavily with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton rushing for about 250. You also love it in there. They get Tyler Warren, their tight end, in at quarterback a little bit as they down Illinois 21-7. And what was a pretty tough contest. And if Illinois, Bill, doesn't just I don't know if there's enough superlatives to describe what happened at the end of that first half, and not in a positive way for the Illini, by the way. Like they're on the 1 yard line, and then they're next thing you know, they're missing field goals to get 0 points out of it to take the lead going into half. Penn State's at home, pretty raucous environment, run the ball well, don't really throw it all that well with Aller. Is there issues with Penn State, or is the Illinois team better than we think?
I think Illinois is a little better than we think, and Penn State is kind of following the model of what Michigan did the past couple seasons. And Ohio State to some extent this season. What do those two teams have in common? Two running backs that are dominant. Whether it's Henderson and Judkins or Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, Penn State is winning with a dominant running game, averaging over 250 yards a game. Their defense is playing very well. I don't know that they have the perimeter weapons that Ohio State does, but I know that they have a schedule that's set up that they should get to that Ohio State game with one loss or less. I'm very excited to watch the October 12th matchup between Penn State out at USC. And how does that translate? Is their defense that good against the guys that USC has on the perimeter? I think Penn State's pretty good, but it always comes down to the big game question, doesn't it? Can they beat Ohio State? Can they beat USC? Illinois is one thing. They were ranked, but is it like the teams that we actually need to see them beat? I don't think so.
Yeah, and that goes into Penn State. To me, is we thought that Aller was going to take that step and be able to throw the ball downfield. And again, you look at Michigan or Penn State, when you have a team that's very, very one-dimensional, it's a lot easier for a defense that has the corners that we have to say, hey, man, we're just going to stop the run. I like the fact that they can't throw the football as a Buckeye fan, but that can only get you so far just leaning on the run. You have to have weapons. I don't think they got them, but that goes into the next game. Minnesota, Michigan, at Michigan. I mean, Desmond Howard's talking about soft scheduling and stuff. Michigan has had 5 home games in a row. Like, what the hell are we talking about, right? So stop it with your soft-ass talk, right? So when you look at Michigan, right, first off, you got the refs that basically gave that game to them because Minnesota had all of the juice going in. I think they at least tied to go to overtime, recovering that. But just talk a little bit about still, even though it sounds like a ditty with Orgy and Loveland and that, like they they're still not being able to do it on, through the air.
Well, there's a reason why Washington's favored against them this weekend, because they're going to do what Minnesota did in the second half. They are going to try to go up tempo. Will Rogers hasn't thrown an interception.
Ooh.
And that, as good as that defense can be for Michigan, when they're sped up and not controlling the clock, that's what Minnesota did. By the way, I 100% thought in real time that Minnesota guy wasn't offsides. I did think he recovered that. It was legit. And obviously the Big Ten is walking back the mechanics on officiating because of that. The good with Michigan is they can still run the football. I do think Khalil Mullins is one heck of a running back. He's very physical, over 7 yards per carry. And Mason Graham is a beast in the middle. But that's not enough to win a Big Ten championship without a passing game. They rank 129th in the country in pass offense. That's not going to do it against Oregon. It's not going to do it against Ohio State. And it may very well not do it in prime time on the road at Washington this weekend.
It's going to be interesting. We'll leave you with this, Bill. Ohio State goes up to Michigan State. Michigan State, I think, better with Jonathan Smith. He's done a good job. Some good young players on that team, 63 new guys, I believe, but did a pretty darn good job out there. Any takeaways from that? Concern about the defense? Obviously, the Jeremiah Smith is a big deal. Aiden Childs did some good stuff. They had some drives through the air that ultimately were ended via turnover. But, I mean, is there anything positively or negatively you look at that with Ohio State and think they need to clean this up, or maybe they were better than we thought?
No, I think the defense travels well, and it was just a solid get in, get out, primetime road victory. And you guys know, when you go on the road in the Big Ten, it can be tough. And people may scoff at that, say, well, it's Michigan State, but you still are in those charged up environments all the time. They'll be in one Saturday. Really looking forward. I'll be there. I want to see how they play against this Iowa defense on one side, and what do they do with Caleb Johnson on the other. There's another talented running back, an Iowa team that had a bye week to prepare, what wrinkles that means. This, to me, will tell us more about Ohio State than last weekend did, even though I was impressed with the win.
All right. Well, Bill, we appreciate it as always, sir. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know you got a lot to do. You're the busiest man that I know. So make sure, folks, you check him out, Bill Bender, Sporting News at Bill Bender 92 for all the great stuff that he's putting out here on a daily basis. Thank you so much for spending some time, Bill.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Thanks, bro.
All right. That's our guy, Bill Bender, doing a great job. All right. Coming up next, we've got some headlines in Schlegel. I don't know if you saw this. Maybe you didn't. There might be a new little alliance. The Big Ten is getting together with another conference. You might be able to guess who it is, and maybe leaning in on the college football playoff on what they'd like to see happen in the future going forward. We'll tell you all about that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. It's customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, welcome back into the show here, and we got headlines now, and as always, headlines, as you just saw right there on social, are brought to you by our friends over at Affinity Whole Health. They offer personalized treatment plans to help you feel better, whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep. Affinity, they can help you with all of it. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance and support to help you safely reach your health goals. They've got Ohio covered. They're in Columbus. That's where I see them. That's how they get me looking good and strong. Schlegs. They've got Cleveland covered. They've got Indianapolis. They're up in Chicago. So all over the Midwest. Set up a free consultation. Do not wait. Get it started before 2025 so you can hit the ground running. That's affinitywholehealth.com, affinitywholehealth.com. All right, Schlegs, we're going to toss this up here. Big Ten, SEC, getting together. Heather Dinich put out a bunch of people reported on this, that they were looking to get together. Tony Petitti looking to get together with Greg Sankey, figuring this out, maybe doing some sort of scheduling where they'll have some sort of joint scheduling process. Now, some of this, they say, is hinging on the SEC potentially going to 9 conference games like the Big Ten has. There's some hiccups in it, but with that, both conferences want potentially a guarantee of 4 automatic bids into the conference or into the CFP moving forward. Now, in 20, I think for the next 2 years, it's going to be 12 team. After that, everybody kind of believes that it's going to go to 16 just because more games equal more cash. If you look at the top 16, like, I don't know why there's such a big push for this, because really, if you look at the rankings, like, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, next team you see outside of the Big Ten or ACC or Big Ten or SEC is going to be Notre Dame at 14, Clemson at 15, Iowa State at 16. So there's really not a lot out there. Now, maybe that's just this year and you'll see it shift back, but I'm a believer, Schlegs, is this thing goes and the money keeps getting further and further apart. There's going to be more of a concentration of power at the top. I can tell you, for one, I do love the scheduling element to have like a Big Ten SEC challenge where I don't know if every school needs to play every year. Maybe you just have half or 2/3 of them or whatever it is. But Ohio State coming up, they've got Bama, they've got Georgia, they've got Texas on the schedule, and not in that order, I believe, in their future non-conference. I love that. You want to see good versus good. I think this will give you the chance to see that.
Sankey, when you said that guy's name, I just think of Saki, right?
Saki bomb.
Saki bombs, man. Saki. Yeah, exactly. Hey, I love competition, and I totally agree with the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, you look at right now, I think, and I'm not looking at it, but I heard it probably on the Morning Juice, Bob. I think they have 9 teams ranked in the top 25.
The Big Ten has 7. Rutgers right there creeping on the outside. So, I mean, that's the majority of the poll right now.
100%. So I understand where it's going. The best ball is played in those 2 conferences right now. Based on the rankings, you would give the edge to SEC. And the hardest thing about doing those like SEC Big Ten challenges year to year, right? The ebbs and flows of recruiting and development, and you want to see great competitive games. You know that the Ohio States and Ohio State's going to be Ohio State. The Texases, the Georgias, the Alabamas, along with Penn State, just kind of always been Penn State, right? Michigan's kind of always been Michigan under Harbaugh. Like, they're there, right? Not like they were with the Hoke era. But I love it. As of right now, you would say they are 4. Then it's like, okay, you guys, you other conferences, you other 2, you squabble for the scraps of maybe 2 and 1, and then we got the outlier at 12.
For the scraps from Longshank's table. I mean, you
exactly.
had it.
Well, this would be the CFP table.
Yeah.
Just throwing nuggets out there. But I would say this too. I think by the time I absolutely hate the fact of going to 16 because, guys, there is such a gap. You know, I mean, like, you look at Notre Dame and what those point totals would be right now versus an Ohio State. You look at even the Iowa State of the world. Let them play the season out before we start looking at that. I just don't see the quality of depth in college football through parity in the portal to be able to have more than 12. That's just my opinion.
It is tough. I mean, those 13, 14, 15, 16, like, how good are those teams? You know, there's years where you may have 8. There's years where there may be 6. There's years where there might be 10 or 11. 16 is a big stretch. That's why it's very beneficial for those teams to win at the top, Schlegs, and to be able to get those buys. In the 12 team, in the 16, like, getting 1 through 4 will be critical again. I'm not a big believer. Like, I believe that every conference should get a representative in. If you win your conference, you should be in the CFP. What I don't believe is that those teams should be the top 4 seeds if they're not warranted. That's my problem. So they should get in, but you're not taking up one of those top 4 spots, whether it's in a 12 team or potentially in a 16 team. You shouldn't be able to take those. And because I think that's disingenuous, because you should be able to lean onto your schedule. Playing tough teams is better. And if you're the ACC or Big 12, like, go schedule some really good teams. Go schedule big or go home, and that'll help offset some of what you potentially have. But I do love the fact that you could get more of this good on good in the non-conference at the beginning, because that's what people worried about by going to this 4 team and then 12 team. Like, would it diminish the regular season? I told people I think it might make it better, because you'll be able to lean in on it and be able to make sure that, hey, you have some better opportunities here to get some better schools in it. All right. Schlegs.
You stopped me. I was going to say, hey, I'm going to say this one thing. if we would have had a playoff system back in 05, we started getting hot. We lost to Texas, we lost to USC, but we were starting to roll there toward the end. I would have liked to have seen what we did in a playoff system. That's what I mean. It all matters, but you had those two losses to two good teams. I would have liked to have seen us in the playoffs.
Absolutely. It'll give more teams a chance to be able to do that. All right, coming up next, we've got our tailgate talk. We had a couple of great questions that came in yesterday. Can't wait to be able to get to those with you, my man Schlegel. There's some real funny ones. Tailgate talk brought to you by Real Truck, coming up next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink garage beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegs. Now it's our favorite time. It's our favorite segment. We get Tailgate Talk, brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck. Real Truck, the #1 truck accessory brand in the United States, with top selling upgrades for the ultimate tailgate party. Schlegs, I tell you, they turn your truck into a camper, put stuff inside, stuff outside, all kind of racks, stuff for my Jeep, covers. They've got it all, folks. All the accessories you want. Listen, Christmas is around the corner. Lean in for your loved ones. Get it taken care of there or for the tailgate party. Gear up for the season. Bring your truck to life. It's Halloween too at realtruck.com. All right. Here's a great one for you, Schlegs. We're going to go with this. This one came from Mike Ferguson. I always say throw questions out there that you want answered. Maybe they're football related. Maybe they're not. And he even has a picture of this. So I don't know if we can throw up the question and then throw up the picture. The first question is, why does official AJ Hawk dress like he just came from ninja practice? So that's tagged in the replies there. And then followed up, we'll even do this one first. Would you rather drink an unintended drink from a Diddy party or ride backseat on a mini bike cross country, Dumb and Dumber style with Jim Harbaugh?
Dang. Bro, that's so. What was the first part of that Diddy party?
Would you rather get an unattended drink, one that was just given to you, already freshly poured? You have no idea the ingredients.
Guys, listen, I've done far worse than that just at a bar when I was in college. Like, oh, there's a cigarette butt in there. Boom, just adds to the flavor. So I'd probably go with that because I don't definitely want to be on a moped with Jim Harbaugh cross country.
Here's the
question. Here's the thing. Well, I mean, I guess I could just, if I'm riding shotgun, I could then just let it pee freely right there in the back, right? Like, oh, it's so warm. Yeah, you're welcome, coach. You're welcome, Jim. But I would say this, as long as I am drinking that while not at the Diddy party, like in the confines of in the safety of my own home, not there.
Well, see, I don't think you can.
He didn't put it in there. He didn't put that in the question. It just said, where am I drinking that?
Would you rather drink an unattended drink at a Diddy party? Like you were
Is that
there.
what it says? It says it there? No, I can't do that. No,
so you got to be able to
I'll go with Jim. I'll listen to it. I'll just get some side nuggets there. I'm not going.
I think if you put enough Zins in, the caffeine will allow you to focus in. You got to have a Monster, a Zin, and a couple of espressos to allow the caffeine to focus through anything else, any other substances that might be permeating your brain, which might leave you more susceptible to potentially some other things.
So such a great question. What a great would you rather?
It is. And then the AJ Hawk one, like our guy, Mr. Hawk, we're going to throw that one up, the reply in there. It's tagged in with Mike.
That guy.
Why does AJ always look like he's coming from a ninja costume? And we're hopefully gonna have AJ on tomorrow. I gotta text him to confirm, but there is some truth. I mean, I'm not positive that AJ isn't a ninja, kind of like Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like, I
Right.
don't know what he does at night.
Yeah, I would say this about AJ. One, he looks significantly more handsome than he did when he was in college. Two, I like to wear black because my wife thinks I'm more attracted when I wear black. So I wear it all the time for her. But we also
Or
are
for
creatures of no, for my wife. But we're also creatures of habit. And when you have a guy like AJ Hawk that literally will go to Walmart and purchase cargo pants, like he probably has bought 5 of those shirts and he just rotates them to whatever's clean. Oh, this looks good. I'll wear it. Like, I buy multiple things of the same thing. I'll spice up the color. I'll go the granite, and then I'll go like a meteorite, right? Then I'll even go like black. But they're all kind of in the same color palette, but that's the pant that I'm wearing. You know what I mean? So I understand where he's coming from. I understand where he's coming from. But yeah, he looks like a ninja. He could throw that hood up. Maybe, here's the best part. Does the hood, we should ask him this, have one of those built-in face masks on it?
Well,
because if it does, then we don't know what he's doing. Or he's just role-playing at the house, Bob.
Yeah, we'll have to save that for tomorrow when he comes on. Ask him about it. You're right. AJ is the biggest creature of habit I know. He does everything. He eats the same food every day. He wears the same clothes in rotation. He has a mini washer and dryer in his closet. He does his laundry every night before he goes to bed. And I think just pulls the same clothes out. You're laughing, Schlegel, because you know it's true.
I know it's true. I do that. And I do the same thing. Like, I don't ever want to fold my clothes. So I just, whatever's in there, it comes out of the dryer. I'll just pull it out when I'm brushing my teeth. Like, oh, I'm going to wear that. I just wore it yesterday. But whatever.
It's amazing because he has more clothes. I'm like, what do you do with the other clothes? You just wear the same things over and over again. But that's the beauty of our guy, Mr. Aaron James Hawk. He is a little bit of cyborg going on right there. We got some other great questions that came in earlier in the week. We will be sure to get to those folks, so keep firing them away. It's the best stuff we get out there. Answering your questions. We will get to some football ones, but that one was too good to pass up. We'll have to address it with AJ tomorrow as well. All right, coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show, finish up with some thoughts from Schlegel.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
Building a home for the people who are worth it. Stepping out, throwing in a line, and dropping the tailgate for a picnic. And finding far-off campsites with the people you're closest to. Upgrade your truck, Jeep, or Bronco with over 1 million parts and accessories and bring your truck to life. Real Truck.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegel, we'll wrap up the show here. Final minute. Big show today. Bill Bender did a great job, as always. Talked a little bit about our guy, 𝗟𝗓𝗙, RIP. Also, Dikembe Mutombo passed away. Another very prominent NBA player. Did a great job after his playing career was over in Africa. Believe he built a $29 million hospital, like in his own country. Has done some fantastic things. So lost a couple of great guys, Schlegel. Last 30 seconds. Let's hear your thoughts on this Tuesday.
Thoughts on the Tuesday, just coming from Pete Rose and Ryan Day talking about playing hard. I think one thing as parents, we look too much at like who starts or who does whatever. Like, watch your kids at practice. Let the standard be your attitude, your effort, and how hard do you play. Celebrate that, okay? Because that's the stuff that carries them further in life. Just go hard.
Absolutely does. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Stay tuned tomorrow for another big Bobby Carpenter show.